Salah Elhagar is a professor of energy and sustainable development in mechanical engineering department at the American University in Cairo. He is also the president of Egypt Vision Council. Dr. Elhagar has more than 30 years of experience in energy and sustainable development, consultancy, and university teaching. Dr. Salah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Helen. Today, inshallah, I'm going to talk about acting to net zero and what's beyond net zero. I think everybody hear about net zero. Now, the agenda for today, first I will start with objectives, then followed by what we mean by net zero in a global scale. And then I will emphasize about the net zero concept or initiative in COP26 by United Nations. And then I will go into Egypt Implementing Council and the first sheet net zero certificate. And then I will end my talk by a conclusion. Now, the main objectives of today's presentation is to present the core concept of the net zero in a global scale. That's the first part. The second part is to present the solution of climate change using net zero emission strategy. In 2015, I authored a book called Sustainability and Innovation. The subtitle of the book is The Next Global Industrial Revolution. The main objective of this book at that time is to see why sustainable development is not implemented as it was planned in 1992. And therefore, the first part of the book is to answer this question. Because worldwide, unfortunately, sustainability is not yet implemented as it was initiated in the United Nations Conference in 1992. And the main reason is the lack of innovation. But not innovation in general, it's innovation in the area of net zero. And that is the main objective of the book. And the net zero is considered within this book in chapter 3 as the next global industrial revolution. That is the only book available worldwide that talks about net zero in general. And in chapter 3, we try to take the net zero in a global scale, which is called net zero green strategy. And then we talk about net zero solid waste strategy, net zero liquid waste strategy, net zero energy strategy, and the neutral carbon strategy or low carbon strategy. And then all this here will end up by new or net zero emission strategy, where United Nations in COP26, they initiated this concept by 2050, the whole world should have net zero emission. Now, what do we mean by net zero green strategy? Is it a theoretical approach or something practical? Net zero green strategy means in equal out. In equal out. The input raw materials will be converted into products. The emissions will be converted into a product, and the waste will be converted into a product. That is what we mean by net zero green strategy. Is that possible? Yes. It's implemented all over the world. In 1962, Denmark decided to have an industrial estate within an area called Copenhagen, within an area called Kalundborg. Kalundborg is 75 miles from Copenhagen. And to start this industrial estate, they have to construct a power plant. Now, the power plant should use fossil fuel. And they try to find what is the available fossil fuel within the area. And they found the fossil fuel which is available is coal. But unfortunately, coal has very high percentage of sulfur. And according to international regulations, the sulfur content should not exceed 0.5%. 0.5%. The higher the sulfur, the lower the price. And therefore, they found the coal within Denmark almost about 5.5% sulfur. And their decision either do what is called desulfurization process, removing the sulfur, which is a very expensive process, or import fossil fuel from somewhere else. But they had a very smart idea. How about if we take the poor quality coal, which has very high percent of sulfur, and burn it. And as a result of burning the coal, the sulfur oxides will be emitted. Sulfur oxide has a very severe impact on public health, in the eye, in the throat, in the lungs. And therefore, they try to use a technology called wet scrubbing. Wet scrubbing means you inject some kind of a liquid to react with the sulfur oxide. And they injected lime. Lime is available worldwide, it's almost free, calcium hydroxide. Okay, and therefore, this lime will react with sulfur oxides and produce gypsum. And they constructed a company next to the power plant called Gyproc. That is the beginning of Gyproc chain of gypsum boards industry. And they start producing gypsum boards in 1963 by converting the sulfur oxides into a product. Also, they have ash. As a result of burning coal, they have ash. Then they try to utilize the ash, and please keep the word utilize underlined. Okay, they try to utilize the ash into cement industry. And they established cement industry to utilize the ash with some other raw materials. And now, this area, it is net zero solid waste. It is a green community. Of course, this is not the only green community worldwide. We have so far right now, I think about 500 green communities all over the world. And that's what we mean by green strategy. Each country should have what is called green strategy, net zero green strategy. Net zero solid waste strategy, this started, it's almost about 22 years ago, by something called cradle to cradle concept. Cradle to cradle concept means you are extracting the raw materials, process it, but at the end, you will not landfill the waste. You will try to utilize the waste as a raw material. And this concept, by the way, started 22 years ago worldwide, which is a full utilization of solid waste. And we have almost thousands of companies all over the world, in China, in Far East, in India, to utilize the solid waste. Net zero water strategy, it's a little bit different, because some people might call it net zero wastewater strategy, others might call it net zero water strategy. When you talk about water consumption, first you have to start from the source. If you can prevent it from the source, then this will be much higher in the hierarchy of sustainability. And therefore, the first item is using water-saving devices. Right now, worldwide, we have a lot of water-saving devices which can save the water up to 40%. Of course, in Egypt, it started almost about 7-8 years ago. In the United States, I remember that almost 40 years ago when I was in the States, we used to buy the water-saving devices from the local market. After that, you have two streams of wastewater, gray water and black water. Gray water from the shower and sink, black water from the toilet. Unfortunately, in Egypt, we have two pipes. One pipe for gray water, which is 2-inch pipe, and another pipe for black water, which is 4-inch pipe. And both pipes go all the way through the building, and then down in the basement, they mix the two lines together and send it to the sewer system. All we have to do is just put some kind of partition between the gray water and because gray water is slightly contaminated. And when you try to put partition, then you can separate the gray water from the black water and utilize the gray water for landscape or for flushing the toilet tank. In China, they don't do any gray water treatment. They have some kind of a tank within each bathroom where this tank contains water level indicator and a pump. And they take the gray water and use it without treatment to flush the toilet tank. In United Arab Emirates, they do one further step. They collect the gray water and then they treat it. Treatment of gray water is very simple. We did a number of projects in New Cairo. It's very simple, almost about 2 tanks with some kind of dosing pump and other. And then treat the gray water and use it for landscape or for flushing the toilet. The amount of gray water is almost about 50% of the total water consumption. And this will reduce the amount of wastewater going into the sewer system. And then the third one is the full utilization of black water, which is already done in Egypt. All new communities, they use irrigation for landscape using the treated wastewater or black water. And by the way, we have one compound in the new administrative capital which implemented the concept of net zero wastewater. Net zero energy strategy. First, before we get into energy, renewable energy, you have to do the first task, which is energy conservation. Energy conservation is very simple, but has a very high percentage. You can save up to 60% of energy from the natural lighting, from the LED, from the high performance glass windows, from insulating the building envelope. This four can save about 60%, and then the remaining energy you can just produce it from renewable energy. Some people might say, oh, renewable energy is very expensive. That's correct, especially with the current price of the dollar. I think the internal rate of return will be around 7, maybe even slightly higher. But in Germany, they did a very smart renewable energy building in 2015, using something called macroalgae. Macroalgae, through the windows, if you have double glazing windows, then between the glazing, then you can circulate macroalgae. And macroalgae will absorb the solar energy and allow the natural light to get into the building. Now this macroalgae, it's a biomass. You can collect it down at the basement and use it as a biomass to generate electricity. The emissions from the macroalgae, which is a biomass, is mainly carbon oxides and nitrogen oxides. Nitrogen oxides is considered as a nutrient for the macroalgae. Carbon dioxide with the sun, with the solar energy, will do what is called photosynthesis process to accelerate the growth rate of the macroalgae. And now you can have the building. Of course, the capital cost of the macroalgae almost 10 to 15% of the PV cells. But this is not yet commercially available. Even the result of this building is not yet available. I don't know why, but it's very, very promising, and this is the future. Neutral carbon strategy by increasing the greenfield sites. But instead of having some kind of greenfield sites, we can have some kind of crops to produce a biofuel. Like for example, here along the Red Sea coast, there is some kind of plant called saliconia. Saliconia, it is a high oil content plant. It can grow on salt water with 30,000 ppm. And therefore, if you try to grow this kind of saliconia along the Red Sea, produce saliconia, then extract oil from the saliconia, use it either as an edible oil or as a biofuel. By the way, saliconia is available worldwide. In Europe, they sell 1 meter cube of saliconia oil, almost about $560 per meter cube. And that's available. It's exactly the same taste as the sunflower oil. And therefore, doesn't require high quality water. It requires salt water. It can grow in those fresh water, but does not mandatory to have a fresh water. That is what we mean by neutral carbon strategy, by absorbing the CO2 from the atmosphere and grow biofuel, and then use the biofuel as an alternative energy source, which will give you zero emissions. And that is the next zero, which is the net zero carbon emission strategy. According to United Nations initiative in COP26, they said, and endorsed by all countries, we have to have net zero emission by 2050. By 2050. Some people might say, oh, this is against economy. That is not correct. Egypt Deputy Council started under the umbrella of Ministry of Social Solidarity in 2012, and one of the members of the World Green Building Council. World Green Building Council is the main umbrella worldwide for green buildings. And Egypt Green Building Council, which I'm the president of the Egypt Green Building Council, is an NGO. We are representing Egypt in the World GBC. We decided to have green rating system. Why we decided to have green rating system? Because Building sector contributes with almost 40% of the greenhouse gases. 40% of the greenhouse gases. It's the main contributor to climate change, and therefore we have to do something for the green building sector. We released our sheet rating system. We released our sheet rating system under a certain criteria. It has to be simple, practical, straightforward, innovative, and the most important criteria is to be cost effective. When you spend some money, you will get this money during the operation. And easy to understand. And we have a number of rating systems. Of course, this rating system based on energy, water, and other than energy and water, it's included within the section of habitat. Only 3 elements. These are the rating systems, which is Tarshid affordable buildings for very low price buildings. Tarshid for school, new and existing schools. Tarshid for communities, new and existing communities. Tarshid for commercial, new and existing, and interior construction. Because, for example, if you try to buy an apartment and the whole building is not green, but you'd like to have an apartment green, then you can do that through Tarshid commercial interior construction. And inshallah, next year we will have Tarshid healthcare facilities and Tarshid for homes, inshallah. But the most important part, which is the Tarshid net zero certificate. This is the second net zero certificate worldwide. The first one is net zero. This is the second in terms of names, but it is the first in terms of content. Because Tarshid net zero certificate is applicable for buildings, communities, and industry. And just about 3 weeks ago, we implemented this Tarshid net zero certificate in one of the commercial, in one of the administrative governmental community in new administrative capital. In conclusion, net zero is a solution to all our environmental problems, including climate change. But also, it will accelerate the implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The second objective, if you remember the title, what's beyond net zero? This acting net zero can also bring significant improvement in the economy, in the national economy. Significant improvement in the national economy. It is not against the economy. It will improve the national economy. Thank you.
Please welcome with me our speakers, Engineer Shireen Zamni. She had pioneered the beginning of the free building movement in the Middle East, and as a lead consultant and adjunct faculty at the American University in Cairo, she is involved in major construction projects in Egypt and the UAE, going for LEED certification. She's combining over 20 years of experience in environmental consulting and training with business skills coaching. She has also delivered training courses to many corporate clients and graduate university students on both the areas of management skills, environmental sustainability, and green conflict. Engineer Shireen is the co-founder and treasurer of Egypt Green Building Council. Please welcome with me Engineer Huda Ibrahim. She is a sustainability consultant. She is an environmental engineer with more than 16 years of experience in the sustainability field in MENA and Africa region. She is a PhD candidate in sustainable development and has a master's degree in environmental engineering management and technology. She is a lead AP, well AP, Edge expert, Edge auditor, Edge faculty, USGBC faculty, USGBC pro reviewer, Tarshid assessor, environmental product declaration specialist, and lead advisory committee group member. She has managed many sustainability projects with different privileging systems like LEED, Tarshid, Edge, Well, Amsterdam. She managed different types of projects, residential, commercial, hospitality, and industry. Let me start with Dr. Salah, since we were talking about different net zero strategies in your presentation. Always began the question that it's costly. So the cost is always an issue. How do you think we can implement and improve the investment in the sector?
I think that's a very important point because the economy, it is the main pillar of sustainability. Without economic development, you'll never be able to implement any of the sustainability action plans. And when we talk about net zero, as I mentioned just during the presentation, we have to think from the economical point of view. Now, instead of saying reduce the emissions, no, how about if we can grow some kind of plants to absorb the CO2 within the atmosphere, at the same time produce a biofuel. Like for example in Malaysia. In Malaysia they start with palm oil as an edible oil, and then now they are using palm oil as a main biofuel within Malaysia area, and they will reach net zero very soon. And therefore, net zero is not a burden to the economy. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about net zero emission, it's an integration of net zero solid waste, net zero wastewater, net zero energy, and neutral carbon emission. And therefore, all of them will end up by net zero emission.
Thank you, Dr. Salah. Dr. Shireen, back to you. Now, can you talk to us about circular economy? Dr. Salah talked about zero waste circular economy, how we can integrate this in construction sector.
Thank you, Dr. Hela, for the question, and very happy to be here. The concept of circular economy is relatively new. So traditionally, our economy was and still is, for the most part, based on producing things, using them, and then putting them to waste. Or basically, in other words, that's what you can call a linear economy. Now, the relatively new trend is what we call circular economy. In a circular economy, waste does not exist. Waste, or what we call waste, is basically an input as raw material for another further industrial process. One very good example presented by Dr. Elhagar in his presentation is that of Kallenberg, and how they were able to put to very good use the sulfur oxides. And now this company, through that innovative thinking, is maybe one of the largest producer of gypsum board in the world. And many of our projects here in Egypt use their products. So basically what we're talking about is that we should not look at waste as waste. It is the input to another industrial process, and this can vary to different degrees in sophistication. Another very simple example that's very close to home here is in many of our green building projects in Egypt, we have to deal with very large amounts of construction and demolition waste. Some of the aggregate can be used as an alternative in the cement industry. So some of the construction demolition waste can be used in the cement industry as an alternative material. And there are many such examples. If we adopt this strategy more diligently, we can gain hugely in the economy and even in creating new jobs. We can protect ourselves from the volatility of international markets. We can foreign currency fluctuations, because basically we are, instead of looking at drawing in more virgin resources, virgin material resources, we're basically trying to look into what we already have. So there's a lot to be gained there.
Huda, what is embodied carbon? Talk to us about embodied carbon and what are some experience strategies that can be implemented to reduce the carbon footprint?
So the embodied carbon is the carbon that is not seen or recognized while we are building our buildings. So how we can achieve or count the embodied carbon in our products or in our buildings, we have three main categories that we need to focus on. The first one is the energy. while we are selecting some equipment and estimating the carbon emissions that will be reduced during the construction phase and the operation phase, we need to check the technical data sheets of each equipment and see how much, what is the expected carbon emissions will be produced from these equipment. So this is a very important thing. The other thing related to energy also is to use renewable energy on site. Of course, it's not that easy, or the reduction of the renewable energy in some buildings may not exceed 10%, but we need to focus more about this. The other thing is the water. When we are using the water appliances, even in our buildings, our homes, we need to check the energy efficiency of these appliances. Energy efficiency means carbon emission reduction. So while we are considering the selection of these appliances, we will, of course, achieve the carbon reduction. The third thing is the material. The selection of the material is not about just go to the store and buy some materials and that's it. No. During the manufacturing process of these materials, there are a consuming or reduction of CO2 emissions. So, for example, if we are using for the concrete mix and use the GBBS or the fly ash, recycled content in the concrete admixture differ from the carbon emission differ from a product to another. By many researchers, the carbon emissions for just selecting a material that have a recycled content may reduce to up to 60% of the carbon emissions. So this is a very huge amount that we shall consider when selecting some products.
Thank you, Dr. Salah. You mentioned in the presentation that Egypt has released the first net zero certification. Can you talk to us more about this?
Okay, thank you, Hannah, for this point here, because again, 3 weeks ago, Egypt Green Building Council organized Net Zero International Conference at American University in Cairo, and we released the Tarshid Net Zero Certificate on the 28th of last May. Now this, as I mentioned during the presentation, this Net Zero Certificate is applicable for buildings, for communities, and for industries. But there is one prerequisite and one requirement. The prerequisite, this building or this community or this industry has to be green. Has to be green. Green with any certificate, whether it is LEED, Tarshid, any certificate, but this is a prerequisite for the community or the building or the industry to be green before get the Tarshid Net Zero certificate. That's one. Required, we have to define the boundary. You might have a compound, but we need just part of the compound to be net zero. Then you have to define Tarshid boundary to award green or Tarshid Net Zero certificate. These are the two requirements for Tarshid Net Zero certificate. And we implemented, by the way, in one of the governmental administrative community in the new administrative capital. First, we applied Tarshid, and they received Tarshid Platinum. And then after that, we applied the Tarshid Net Zero certificate. And Tarshid, there is 4 levels for the Tarshid Net Zero certificate. If you gain one net zero, like for example net zero wastewater, then you can get 1 level. If you get 2, like Tarshid, like net zero solid waste and net zero wastewater, then you can get 2. If you get net zero water, net zero energy, and net zero solid waste, then you can get 3. If you get the 4 levels, including the emission, then you can get 4. Therefore, Tarshid Net Zero certificate has silver, gold, platinum, and diamond. And the one in new administrative capital, they received gold certificate.
Thank you, Dr. Salah. Dr. Sharif, back to you. There are a lot of green building rating systems. What is different about Tarshid? And if you can also talk to us about Tarshid communities.
Thank you, Hela. So, like you said, there are lots of green building rating systems around the world. As the Egypt Green Building Council, we felt the need of our Egyptian market, our Egyptian community, to have our own tailored system that would fit our needs as Egypt, really. And Tasheed fits the bill. It is tailored to our needs. It doesn't make it mandatory for you to, for example, have to import expensive materials from abroad in order to fulfill particular requirements that are required from other international systems. It is more easy to implement using the services already readily available in our market. It is far more cost effective. And that is really the reason why we feel that it is much better suited for our market. If I touch into Tasheed communities in particular, we all know that in the past few decades in Egypt, we've had an increasing number of gated communities that have sprung up all over the country, from each of our coasts to, of course, Cairo and everywhere else. We felt that a particular system needed to address those gated communities and their needs, because if you're able to apply sustainability into these and you succeed in doing so, then the benefits would be huge. And I'm talking about all aspects of sustainability, of course, generally energy, water, and general habitat, which are the three categories that we deal with in Tasheed. We do have Tasheed communities that actually achieved certification very successfully, and Dr. Elhagar mentioned one of those, and that is a great source of pride to us.
Talk to us about Tasheed Hayat Karima and how green buildings is not only for urban areas, it's also for rural areas.
Our initiative for Hayat Karima started before COP27. We were thinking to implement or to develop a new rating system, affordable rating system for the decent houses. We focus on the needs of these communities, how they can record their achievement toward green building, and in addition to save energy and water. And while we are thinking about that, we have a survey to see what are the available equipment and fixtures and appliances that these communities use. So for the energy, for example, they of course didn't use HVAC system and VRF system and so on. So they are only use a fan. So in addition to a fan, of course, we think about another technologies to be used inside these buildings by using shafts in addition to windows, and have air circulation to make it some comfortable inside the buildings. While we are thinking about water savings, we see that there are many technologies that can reduce water consumption by adjust the toilet fixtures and the flushing vents of these fixtures, so it's not impossible. The local material, we already have here in Egypt many local material that are using recycled content in the production process. So all these aspects have been collected and developed in the Tasheed Hayat Karima rating system.
Thank you, Hada. I think we can take two questions from the audience. Any questions? sustainability is effective in Egypt or not yet?
What the question is?
Sustainability is effective in Egypt. Are we working on it sustainability in general or in green buildings? So we can talk. For example, green building. Yeah. Okay.
Sustainability, it is the key issue to solve all our problems. If we understand the concept of sustainability, I'm sure we'll be able to solve all our problems. That's why, if you remember, during one of the slides, in University of Columbia, in 2012, they have some kind of initiative to see why sustainability worldwide is not implemented as it was planned in 1992 during the United Nations Conference. And everybody came up with some kind of ideas. In this book, I try to emphasize about the need for innovation. Innovation in the area of net zero. If you have innovation in the area of net zero, then you will be able to implement sustainability. Now, net zero, it sits at the top of the hierarchy of sustainability. And therefore, if you understand sustainability, we will be able to implement it, then we will solve all our problems in Egypt and all over the world. Not only in green buildings, but also in industry and also in transportation sector.
Just one question about encouraging firms and organizations to adopt this concept. Like in America and Europe, we see carbon negative initiatives for Microsoft and other firms, and it's a strategic goal. Companies set strategic plans to set it in 2030, 2035, 2050 to be carbon zero by 2030, to be carbon negative by 2050. In Egypt, I think the awareness is low. We're too far.
Not too far. People start net zero in COP26. In COP27, I attended COP27, and I remember one of the presentations by British group. They said net zero is impossible. Now the problem now, what we are trying to convince everybody, and net zero is a solution, and it's an economical solution. And therefore now these companies, they have strategic plan about net zero to approach 40% carbon reduction by 2030, 100% target in 2050, etc. But this, until today, it's a company-based solution. There is no one single country, they have a strategy for decarbonization yet.
Any further questions? I think we can talk about this, about Rashid and the difference between different rating systems.
So Rashid is unique. Of course, all green rating systems, including Rashid, share many common aspects. So, for example, basically all green building rating systems that we know of, they all have a major category called energy, and with all sorts of requirements on how to reduce the use of energy. All rating systems have a category called water, with also issues about water. So Rashid, of course, has those. And lots in common with other rating systems. But like we said before, Rashid is unique in that it's uniquely tailored to Egypt with the purpose of making a real shift in the market by getting more and more people on board, not only major construction projects, but people in their own homes. And that was the main goal. Because of course, we are all practitioners of international rating systems. I mean, all of our team here have worked with international rating systems for many years, both in Egypt and abroad. We came to the conclusion that when we talk about the Egyptian market, if we really want to make a difference, international systems aren't exactly what is needed, because these go to the big major construction projects that have huge budgets. So this is where Tawhid comes in, and this is where Tawhid is particularly unique. Thank you.
I think we can take one last question. Yeah.
What about the use of storm water system, حصاد المياه in sustainability in Egypt? Storm water system, حصاد المياه.
Can you repeat again, please?
I mean, how storm water system which runs on the roads and حصاد المياه, the rain comes from up. How do you use this in Egypt for sustainability?
Rainwater harvesting, Dr. Salah, if you want to talk about.
You mean the rainwater, how to convert rainwater or waves into renewable energy?
You know, we have got a stormwater system which goes on the roads and anywhere. This is stormwater system, and you have also got the rainwater which comes up from upwards. Sometimes it just goes like that. How can we use to develop sustainability in the
Green infrastructure. I think I can't pick.
stormwater?
Yes.
There is something called harvesting rainwater. Harvesting it.
That's stormwater.
That would mean
In architecture and in engineering, stormwater is the water which comes on the roads.
that's a stormwater.
Yes,
Stormwater.
yes, stormwater. Yes.
Okay, there is a lot of techniques for stormwater, but in Egypt we don't have stormwater. And therefore we always have, as you know, very rain. But there is a lot of techniques for harvesting the stormwater. I'm not familiar with this kind of technologies.
So, just closing remarks, Dr. Salah, can you talk to us about the future plans of the Egypt Green Building Council and the webinar Egypt Speaks Green?
Our main target in Egypt Green Building Council is to promote the concept of green buildings and green communities within the whole country. That is number one. Whether it's a rural area or in urban area, and our rating systems are flexible to be implemented in both rural areas as well as urban area, and hopefully in the industry to convert it into eco-industrial park, because this will save huge amount of water, energy, and raw materials, and improve the indoor and outdoor environmental quality. And that is our plan to promote the concept of green all over the country.
Okay, and Huda and Dr. Sharif, your last closing remarks. What is the one message that you want to leave the audience with?
My closing remarks regarding what we can do as individuals to advance net zero. And one of the most simple thing that we can do is to reduce waste in all its forms. Reduce waste energy, reduce waste water, reduce waste food, reduce waste materials. So for energy, make sure that you're switching off your devices at night and when they aren't used. Try your best to make your homes airtight. Use efficient windows. Try and use insulation if you're building your own new home. For water, use water-saving devices. If your toilet isn't efficient, put a full water bottle in the flush tank to reduce the volume of water. There are all sorts of things that we can do towards the journey towards net zero, because everything that you waste and you have to remanufacture costs carbon emissions and virgin raw materials. Thank you.
Of course, in addition to what Dr. Shreen said, the main concept of net zero is reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's a closed loop. In addition to, if you can plant a tree, do it every single fresh air to our to them. Thank you.
I think that the most important thing would be that we collaborate all together, all the stakeholders from the beginning of any project till the end. And also localization is another important thing, that we try to implement concepts that are applicable to our context. Thank you very much, and thank you for